You will not believe what happened the moment the family stepped into their brand new cafe, because the very first thing on their checklist, the thing you would think is obvious, running water, simply did not exist. Yes, the kitchen had no proper water connection, and someone, supposedly responsible for preparing the food, decided to improvise by bringing in water from the bathroom, and the sheer audacity of it left everyone stunned. Imagine standing there ready to launch a business, knowing your entire family is counting on you, and then seeing them use bathroom water to wash the ingredients for hundreds of meals. And as if that wasn't enough, just moments later, a priest arrived to perform a traditional blessing ritual, and in a twist that can only happen on reality TV, that blessing included a mixture of holy water and cow urine, sprinkled across the cafe, the counters, the food prep areas, and the staff, creating a scene so surreal and shocking that you could almost hear viewers recoiling at home. Sabrina here. Welcome to TLC Drama Live, and if you haven't yet, hit subscribe and share your thoughts in the comments, because today, the chaos is so extreme that you will not want to look away. The immediate reaction was disbelief, frustration, and a dash of horror, because how could anyone open a cafe, let alone one meant to support an entire family, without the most basic facilities? The question starts rattling around instantly. Why did Sumit choose this location knowing the water situation? Or did he? Did the rest of the family even realize they would be working under these conditions? And how much of this was overlooked in excitement versus ignorance? Jenny, standing by, visibly concerned, is already calculating the risk in her head, worried that not only is this a public embarrassment waiting to happen, but that this might delay or even prevent her plans to finally move out and claim some independence from the constant family oversight. Every moment of hesitation, every glance at the improvised water setup, every sprinkle of cow urine added to the tension, because it was clear that even if they managed to get food out to people, the perception of hygiene, of competence, and of professionalism was being tested in a way that would be impossible to recover from if ignored. And yet, despite the chaos, the family pressed forward because the stakes were enormous. This cafe wasn't a side project or a hobby, it was their main source of income. And failure here would have real consequences. You could feel the weight in every movement, every instruction, every cautious approach to cooking or cleaning, because even small mistakes could snowball into disaster. Jenny's hesitation wasn't laziness. It was acute awareness of what was happening, the clash between cultural practices and Western expectations, and the sheer logistical nightmare of attempting to run a professional business under these conditions. And while Sumit tried to assert control, walking through the kitchen and explaining why bathroom water was not acceptable, it was impossible to ignore the fact that the decisions that led to this moment were a mix of cultural tradition, overconfidence, and perhaps a lack of foresight. And tension between family authority, personal ambition, and business sense began to simmer right under the surface. By the end of this first day, the cafe had survived the initial shock, but nothing else. Every glance at the counters reminded them of the risk of public humiliation. Every passing moment brought questions about whether the blessing ritual had gone too far, and every sigh from Jenny reflected the fear that this venture might already be jeopardized before a single paying customer walked through the door. And as the evening settled in, everyone knew that tomorrow's soft launch would either be a chance to redeem themselves or confirm all the doubts swirling in the room. Because with no margin for error, the first impressions would define whether this cafe could ever actually succeed. From the moment the family walked into the tiny, cramped cafe, it was clear that running a business here wasn't just challenging. It was borderline reckless. There was no running water, barely enough counter space, and a family of 4, each with their own ideas and habits, all trying to operate under the same roof. Watching it unfold, you can't help but wonder, was this really a calculated business move, or was it fueled by emotion, optimism, and a little bit of denial? Sumit might have had visions of a bustling cafe with loyal customers streaming in, but the reality was far more complicated. Every corner of that small space seemed to whisper caution, from the narrow aisles to the limited prep areas, and yet ambition, or maybe hope, kept them moving forward, juggling responsibilities that no single person should realistically handle alone. The risk psychology here is fascinating. People don't always make rational choices when their family, pride, and financial survival are intertwined, and you could see it in every glance, every rushed motion, and every small disagreement over how things should be done. Jenny's presence adds another layer of complexity. For her, this cafe isn't just a business, it's the key to independence. Living under the same roof as Sumit's family has stretched her patience and limited her freedom, and this venture represents a ticket to finally claiming her own space, her own life. She wants to prove that she can contribute meaningfully, that she can help make this work, and at the same time, carve a path for herself. But wanting freedom and actually achieving it are two very different things. And in a kitchen already full of tension, her dreams are constantly tested. Every dish prepared, every decision made is wrapped up in stakes far higher than a single cup of coffee or plate of food. It's a gamble with her autonomy, her marriage dynamics, and the family's finances, all riding on the same uncertain bet. As they navigate this mess, open questions start piling up. Is this cafe about love, about building something together as a family, or is it more about leverage, control, financial security, and personal agendas hidden behind a fade of teamwork? What happens if the business fails? Does that failure fall squarely on Sumit, or does it reflect on Jenny too? And how will it change the way they interact as a couple and as a family? Jenny may have underestimated just how deeply family habits and expectations would affect her role in this venture. The romantic optimism that sometimes drives reality TV stars to leap into business without a safety net clashes head-on with the structural reality of this cramped, chaotic space, and you can see the tension building every time someone trips over a counter or miscommunicates about a simple task. And then there's the moment that perfectly encapsulates the practical disaster waiting in the wings. Potatoes are being washed with bathroom water, completely ignoring hygiene standards, and the camera catches it all. It's not just a moment of shock, it's a visual cue of the underlying chaos, the clash between ambition and logistics, and the family dynamics that threaten to derail everything. With every splash of water, every improvised solution, and every anxious glance from Jenny, the stakes escalate. The cafe isn't just a business gamble, it's a test of patience, cultural navigation, emotional resilience, and whether a dream built on shaky foundations can survive the first day of public scrutiny. The tension is palpable, and you know that if something doesn't change fast, the entire plan could implode before it even has a chance to breathe. Sumit's patience had limits, and watching his parents treat the cafe like any other family kitchen finally pushed him over the edge. The moment he saw them washing vegetables with bathroom water, his face tightened, his voice sharpened, and suddenly this wasn't just about hygiene. It was about authority, leadership, and respect for the very business they were all depending on. He walked into the cramped space, moving with purpose, and started questioning their choices, pointing out in no uncertain terms that using unfiltered bathroom water for food preparation wasn't just unsafe. It was unacceptable, and every inch of that statement reverberated with the weight of responsibility that had been building silently since the cafe's construction began. Sumit had to step into a role that none of them had formally assigned him. The one in charge, the one accountable for the safety, the reputation, and ultimately the survival of this venture. And doing it in front of the family amplified the tension, because authority within this household was rarely asserted so directly, and doing so publicly risked humiliation, resistance, and outright resentment. Watching him confront his parents is like watching a slow-motion collision between tradition and practicality. His parents defended themselves, claiming that this was standard practice in other restaurants nearby and that there was nothing wrong with it. They insisted this is how things were always done, and somehow that should make it acceptable here. But Sumit refused to let cultural norms override what he understood as professional responsibility. He explained firmly that when hundreds of customers' health is at stake, shortcuts become dangerous, and the safety of the food and the reputation of the cafe was non-negotiable. His voice carried the tension of someone who knew that if the first day went wrong, they would all pay the price. Not just in money, but in credibility and future opportunity. He was caught between respecting his parents and asserting himself as the chef, as the person who had designed the business model, and as the one ultimately responsible for everything under that roof. The contradictions stacked on top of each other. He had chosen this location, a place without proper water infrastructure, yet he had to enforce standards that the location itself made impossible to meet. He was right to challenge the unsafe practices, but he was also also a central part of the reason the problem existed in the first place, and the internal conflict of responsibility versus authority played out in every word and gesture. The dynamics in the room changed instantly. This was the first clear power shift. Sumit was no longer quietly working alongside his family. He had made himself the decision maker, and that meant some old patterns had to break. But authority comes at a cost, and almost immediately, you could see the emotional consequences beginning to form cracks in the family structure. Will his parents resent him for the public confrontation? Will Jenny, watching this unfold, feel relief, fear, or frustration as her dream of independence becomes tangled in this power struggle? And most importantly, is Sumit leading proactively, or is he reacting to chaos that has been building since day one? The questions hovered over every movement, every heated exchange, as the family tried to recalibrate roles in a kitchen suddenly filled with tension, fear, and responsibility. Despite the heated confrontation, the practical implications of the moment were unavoidable. Every dish prepared with contaminated water now had to be discarded, and the sheer scale of food thrown into the garbage was staggering. What had taken hours of effort, time, and precious ingredients was gone in moments, leaving the family staring at piles of wasted food and the heavy financial loss that accompanied it. The clash of authority, the challenge to tradition, and the impossibility of working in a space with no running water had collided to create a tangible visual disaster. Every glance between family members carried unspoken questions about loyalty, competence, and whether anyone could actually make this business succeed under such conditions. Sumit had asserted his authority, but the cost was immediate and raw. Money lost, pride bruised, and the weight of expectations heavier than ever, leaving everyone in the room realizing that the stakes were higher than they had imagined, and that this soft launch had already started as a test of leadership, patience, and family cohesion that few were prepared to pass. The priest moves through the cafe with deliberate care, sprinkling a mixture of holy water and cow urine over the counters, the food prep areas, and even the floor. And watching it unfold from the sidelines, you start to feel the contrast between what's culturally sacred and what looks chaotic through a Western lens. In India, rituals like this are deeply symbolic, believed to cleanse spaces and bring prosperity, but for viewers in the United States, it reads like a dramatic spectacle, something shocking, maybe even unappetizing. Jenny stands nearby, visibly uneasy, her expression caught somewhere between curiosity and discomfort. Yet she doesn't interrupt, doesn't question, because she understands that this is important to Sumit and his family, and she wants to respect that. Every sprinkle of liquid becomes a tension point, a visual reminder of the gap between her expectations and the family's practices. And you can almost feel her internal calculation. How much does she adapt? How much does she observe? And where does compromise end and resentment begin? Reality TV loves moments like this because they allow viewers to feel a mix of surprise, judgment, and fascination. The ritual isn't just a blessing. In the framing of the show, it becomes a point of cultural friction, a way to pit American sensibilities against Indian traditions in the minds of the audience, while simultaneously amplifying personal conflict for narrative tension. But beyond the camera, the ritual itself is not disrespectful. It's meaningful, considered sacred, and performed with intention, and Jenny, in her quiet way, mirrors that respect even if it makes her uncomfortable. She nods, she steps aside, and she allows the ceremony to unfold without interference, showing that cultural understanding sometimes means observing silently, even when every instinct in her body might question what she's seeing. The cafe, small and still empty, becomes a stage for these layered dynamics. On one hand, there's the ritual's purpose, blessing the space, attracting positive energy, and signaling a new beginning. On the other, there's the optics. For anyone unfamiliar with the tradition, it looks messy, strange, and maybe even alarming. The camera doesn't pause to explain the context in detail. It captures reactions, hesitation, and those fleeting facial expressions that make moments feel bigger than life. Jenny's careful navigation of her discomfort, her decision to stay respectful despite surprise or mild disgust, highlights a a core tension that many viewers relate to, the push and pull between honoring someone else's culture and maintaining one's own standards and boundaries. As the ritual winds down, there's a sense of quiet accomplishment, a completion of a necessary step that the family has invested hope in. The blessing ceremony is over, the cow urine and holy water have been sprinkled and recited over, and the symbolic work is done. Yet the cafe remains empty. The counters clean, but the chairs waiting for paying customers who have yet to arrive. Jenny exhales, a mixture of relief and anxiety visible in her posture, while Sumit and his family look toward the next challenge. Can the symbolic protection and positive energy actually translate into real-world success? The tension lingers because, despite the completion of this spiritual task, the business reality has not shifted. They still have to convince people to step in, pay, and believe in the cafe's promise. And the delicate balance between respecting tradition and navigating the practical demands of running a business remains unresolved. The cafe bursts to life, but not in the way anyone expected. Hundreds of plates are flying out the door, steaming with dal, rice, curries, and freshly brewed coffee, and every dish is being handed away for free. The blessing ceremony has drawn a crowd, and locals are sampling everything with curiosity and enthusiasm. But the excitement comes with a terrifying reality check. Not a single dollar is coming in. Jenny watches as plates vanish, her stomach twisting, her mind racing. Every steaming meal leaving the counter feels like money slipping through her fingers, and the fear is immediate, tangible, and consuming. She had imagined contributing to a successful launch, showing her independence, maybe even seeing some return on effort. But instead, she's staring at a mountain of free food and zero income, and the anxiety spikes like nothing she has felt before. This is where financial psychology comes crashing into the moment. From a marketing perspective, giving out free samples is a classic strategy. You invest upfront to create buzz, attract customers, and eventually convert them into paying regulars. But when the pile of free plates is counted in hundreds, when ingredients have cost real money, and when there's no cash coming in to offset the loss, survival fear overtakes strategy. Jenny isn't panicking because she's lazy or ungrateful. She's panicking because the numbers in her head don't add up, and every dish is a reminder of how fragile their financial situation is. The question starts gnawing at viewers too. Is she wrong to be alarmed, or is the family gambling too much on optimism? On one side, the family sees it as an investment in reputation and word-of-mouth marketing. On the other, Jenny sees the immediate, harsh reality. Money is gone, no revenue is coming in, and the stakes, her independence, the family's income, their ability to keep the cafe afloat, air sky high. Watching the crowd enjoy the food, there's a dramatic tension that you can feel creeping into every frame. Jenny's mind is calculating time, ingredients, effort, and the dwindling buffer they have to survive financially. How long before money runs out? Who is tracking the finances? And most importantly, is this sustainable? The cafe is alive, vibrant even, but only in appearance. Beneath it, the cracks are widening. Every free plate pushes the family closer to a financial cliff, and every satisfied customer makes Jenny's internal conflict more intense. How do you balance hospitality, culture, and marketing strategy with real-world survival needs? As the line of locals finally thins and the last plate is handed out, Jenny takes a deep breath, glancing at the empty registers, the receipts that don't exist, the ingredients that have vanished into nothing but goodwill. The excitement of the blessing and the free samples hasn't translated into security or profit, and she blurts out in frustration and disbelief, the words heavy with both concern and urgency, "No money made today." The tension hangs in the air, because the audience knows the stakes have just been made painfully real. They're not just serving food, they're betting on their own resilience, trust, and hope. And the question remains, will this gamble pay off, or is the cafe already teetering on the edge of a financial disaster? Jenny stands at the coffee station, staring at the shiny, intimidating machine like it's speaking a foreign language. Buttons, levers, steaming pipes, it all looks deceptively simple. Yet somehow every cup she tries to make ends up spilling over, foaming, or coming out lukewarm. Her fingers fumble, her hands hover nervously, and the camera captures it all, leaving viewers both amused and sympathetic. It's one of those moments where you want to laugh, but also want to lean in and reassure her, because anyone who's ever faced a new skill knows that awkward, overwhelmed feeling all too well. Jenny is trying. really trying. But there's no hiding the panic in her eyes when she realizes she has to produce a perfect cup of coffee while hundreds of people are waiting, the family is watching, and the soft launch is ticking closer by the minute. The learning curve at her age, combined with the high-stakes environment, creates a tension that's both dramatic and almost painfully relatable. She repeats the same steps over and over, sometimes succeeding, sometimes failing, and each misstep amplifies the pressure. It's not incompetence in the sense of laziness, it's overwhelm, stress, and the human response to being asked to perform in a completely new, unfamiliar role under public scrutiny. Behaviorally, you can see the conflict inside her. She wants to contribute, to assert herself, to be capable, but every small failure chips away at her confidence. And the family? They're supportive to a degree, but there's an unspoken expectation that she should keep up, which only makes the tension more palpable. Is she inadvertently sabotaging herself with her anxiety? Or is the family pushing too hard too soon, expecting mastery from someone still figuring out the ropes? By minute 7, the tone shifts subtly, giving the audience a breather from the roast. Jenny exhales, wipes her forehead, and for a moment, the humor fades into empathy. Watching her struggle isn't just funny anymore, it's human. Learning something under pressure is exhausting, and the camera, in its relentless realism, captures the emotional toll as clearly as the failed cups of coffee. You start to understand her inner turmoil, the desire to be competent, the fear of disappointing everyone, and the creeping realization that maybe she bit off more than she could chew. And that's the emotional hook that keeps the audience glued. They want to see if she survives this, if she grows, or if this moment becomes her undoing. Open questions start layering in the background. Will she explode later under all this pressure? Is she miscast in this business, simply not suited to the operational chaos? Is she slowly losing influence in the cafe, watching others take control while she flounders at the station meant to showcase her contribution? Every spill, every hesitation, and every awkward glance towards Sumit or the family adds to the suspense. By the end of this session, Jenny steps back from the coffee machine, hands trembling slightly, eyes scanning the busy cafe, and mutters under her breath, the words thick with disbelief and anxiety, "What did I just get myself into?" It's a simple line, but loaded with emotion, empathy, and foreshadowing. The audience feels it too. A combination of humor, tension, and real human stakes that primes them for the next wave of chaos and drama waiting just around the corner. The air in the cafe is thick with tension, heavier than the steam rising from the hundreds of plates being prepared and served. Every move Sumit makes is measured, every glance at his parents loaded with subtle frustration, while Jenny hovers nearby, hands gripping the counter, feeling the weight of more than just a coffee machine. This isn't just a business, this is survival. The family depends on this cafe for income, for stability, for the possibility of moving forward. That kind of pressure changes everything. It warps behavior in ways that are subtle and explosive at the same time. Sumit's usually calm authority now borders on rigid, every small mistake magnified in his mind, while Jenny's anxiety spikes with each passing minute, a quiet panic gnawing at her as she struggles to reconcile her own ambitions with the expectations surrounding her. The collectivist mindset of Sumit's family clashes with Jenny's more individualistic approach. In a household where decisions and responsibilities are shared, every action carries layers of obligation. Sumit's parents don't just see the cafe as a business, they see it as a family lifeline, a joint effort where everyone's contribution is essential. For Jenny, raised with the idea that personal competence equals independence, this dynamic is foreign and suffocating. She watches as the family navigates tasks seamlessly, or at least they appear to. While she feels like an outsider struggling to keep up, her own fears amplified by the awareness that the family's survival rests, in part, on her performance. Financial burden is another silent, unspoken pressure cooker. Every rupee spent, every ingredient prep, every plate handed away for free weighs on Jenny's mind. The audience can see it in the way she calculates each transaction in her head, in the anxious glances she gives the register, in the way she hesitates before handing out yet another free sample. Meanwhile, Sumit's parents are focused on tradition, ritual, and long-term planning, which only fuels Jenny's sense of urgency. She wonders, if I mess this up, if we fail, am I letting them down? And beyond that, am I dooming myself to financial dependence longer than I anticipated? Sumit, caught between his wife's rising anxiety and the family's expectations, feels the burden of responsibility like a backpack loaded with bricks. He wants the cafe to succeed for the sake of everyone involved, but the responsibility also isolates him, forcing him to act as mediator, disciplinarian, and problem solver simultaneously. The energy in the room is palpable. Every mistake, every spill, every argument is magnified under the lens of survival. The emotional undercurrent is a delicate but volatile mix. Jenny feels trapped, her independence slipping just when she hoped to claim it. The parents feel disrespected, their experience and tradition questioned at every turn. Sumit feels cornered, balancing loyalty, authority, and personal ambition while trying to keep everyone from snapping. The audience begins to sense the cracks forming. Who will be the first to crack under this relentless pressure? Is the marriage secondary to survival? Or can personal ambition and partnership withstand the weight of collective expectation? Is the balance of power in this partnership equitable? Or is Jenny slowly losing ground as the family dynamic asserts itself in subtle but firm ways? Every glance, every sigh, every frustrated gesture is a clue, and each one adds another layer of suspense, keeping viewers on edge. As the morning turns into afternoon, the combination of physical exhaustion, financial anxiety, and cultural tension reaches a simmering point. Jenny wipes her hands on her apron, glances at the busy, chaotic cafe around her, and mutters under her breath, almost to herself, "How long before someone snaps?" The words hang in the air like a warning. The pressure cooker isn't just metaphorical anymore. It's counting down to a moment of eruption that the audience can feel in every pan clatter, every sharp word, and every nervous glance exchanged across the cramped cafe. The cafe is alive with motion, but underneath the bustle lies a quiet tension that only sharp eyes can catch. Plates are being served, orders are being managed, yet every step forward feels precarious. For Jenny and Sumit, this isn't just about coffee and curries. It's a collision between romantic optimism and harsh business reality. Love, it turns out, doesn't automatically translate into operational competence. Just because two people are committed to each other, or even deeply invested in a shared dream, doesn't mean they're equipped to run a cafe efficiently, especially one under the pressure of supporting an entire family. Every misstep, every spilled cup, and every moment of panic serves as a reminder that emotional commitment alone cannot carry a business. Jenny's anxiety spikes as she watches the chaos around her. She's invested, she's enthusiastic, but enthusiasm without training, preparation, or oversight isn't enough. The audience starts to question along with her. Is this a true failure, or simply the painful adjustment phase that comes with launching any high-stakes venture? There's a thin line between disaster and learning, but right now, the scales feel dangerously tipped toward the former. Sumit, on the other hand, juggles authority, expectation, and personal investment, aware that his confidence as a partner may not be enough to smooth over structural problems. Planning oversights, like choosing a location without proper water access, clash with cultural rituals and traditional practices, creating tension between pragmatic necessity and symbolic observance. From the perspective of viewers, it becomes easy to ask, were these problems avoidable? Could better foresight have prevented a morning filled with free samples, spilt coffee, and frustrated family members? Red flags, limited space, insufficient water, inexperienced staff, and cultural differences in business operation were visible from the start. Yet in the whirlwind of romantic optimism and production pressure, these warnings were either ignored or minimized. Reality TV, of course, amplifies every hiccup, every argument, every spill, turning normal startup struggles into dramatic spectacle. The lens doesn't just record, it magnifies, ensuring that every small miscalculation is caught in high definition for maximum tension. Despite the chaos, there's a subtle thread of hope woven into the day. Jenny and Sumit are still committed. They are still trying. There is effort, intention, and the shared dream that fuels the family. But the audience can't ignore the looming questions. Is commitment enough to overcome systemic issues? Can they learn quickly enough to prevent financial disaster? And most importantly, can they reconcile cultural expectations with practical business demands without alienating each other or the family? As the day winds down, the cafe finally quiets. The blessing ceremony is over. The last free sample handed out, but the real challenge looms ahead. The opening day is tomorrow. It's the first opportunity to convert effort into income. Buzz, into paying customers. The tension hangs heavy because everyone knows this next step cannot fail. Jenny wipes her hands on her apron, glances at the bustling yet precarious setup, and lets out a slow, measured breath. The audience is left with a question that cuts to the heart of the drama. Will love, effort, and optimism be enough to survive the brutal reality of running this cafe? Or is the next opening day going to expose every weakness at once? The cafe is more than coffee, curries, or even a family business. Every plate served, every spill, every decision reflects something far bigger: freedom, control, identity, and respect. For Jenny, the cafe symbolizes her potential escape, a way to claim independence from living under Sumit's family roof. It's her chance to show she can contribute, that she can help build a future that isn't defined by reliance on anyone else. Each cup of coffee she struggles to perfect, each awkward exchange with the family, carries the weight of her personal stake. Success here isn't just profit, it's validation, it's autonomy. It's a way to prove that she belongs in this partnership on equal footing. For Sumit, the cafe is a stage for authority and responsibility. It's where his decisions, his leadership, and his cultural values are tested in real time. Choosing the location, enforcing hygiene standards, negotiating rituals with the family, all of these are demonstrations of control, proof that he can navigate tradition while maintaining order. But control isn't absolute. The constant balancing act between family expectations, Jenny's competence, and operational logistics exposes how fragile authority can be under pressure. When the family resents his corrections or Jenny struggles to keep up, his leadership is challenged, and with it, his sense of identity as both a husband and the person responsible for the success of the cafe. Respect is the third layer. Cultural rituals, the blessing ceremony, the cow urine sprinkling, these are not simply props for drama. They are markers of tradition and community that demand acknowledgement. For Jenny, observing them respectfully, even when uncomfortable, is a demonstration of her willingness to integrate into the family's world. But respect isn't passive. Every free plate served, every financial misstep, every operational hiccup tests her resolve, her judgment, and her ability to assert herself without overstepping. Each decision is a microcosm of negotiating identity, boundaries, and cultural expectations simultaneously. And then there's the unspoken, looming question. If the cafe fails, what does that say about the marriage? This is not hyperbole. Failure in this context isn't just business loss, it's symbolic. Every argument, every spilled coffee, every mismanaged moment becomes a lens for evaluating the couple's ability to survive practical challenges together. Can love alone sustain a partnership under financial and familial pressure? Can romantic optimism withstand logistical reality? These questions echo back to the open loops planted earlier. Is Jenny trapped financially? Will the family fracture under stress? Who really holds authority? Some of these answers are beginning to emerge. Jenny's anxiety shows cracks in her confidence, Sumit's assertiveness demonstrates his attempt at control, and the family's reactions hint at potential fractures, but not all questions are resolved. The cafe has become more than a test of skill or planning. It is a mirror reflecting the balance of power, the negotiation of culture, and the struggle for autonomy within a high-pressure family system. Some loops close, Jenny's commitment is evident, Sumit's authority is established, but the final, most critical question remains unanswered. Will their love and determination be enough to survive the mounting chaos of opening day? Or will the pressures of freedom, control, identity, and respect collide in ways they can't recover from? The audience is left holding their breath, because every decision, every spill, and every emotional crack in this cafe could be the turning point that defines more than just the business. It could define the marriage itself. The chaos in the cafe isn't about spilled coffee or even the cow urine blessing, as shocking as that looked on camera. The real issue has nothing to do with hygiene alone. It isn't a single plate of food thrown away, or even the free samples disappearing faster than anyone could count. The problem runs deeper, through the veins of leadership, communication, and the invisible pressure of everyone's expectations. Sumit may have authority, but authority alone cannot smooth over the cracks created by misaligned priorities, cultural friction, and financial strain. Jenny may be committed, but commitment without clarity or guidance can spiral into panic. The audience finally begins to see that what looked like a messy, almost comedic disaster is actually a delicate tension between competing needs, values, and abilities. Leadership in this cafe is complex. Sumit is in charge, but he is also accountable to his family and his wife. His decisions, where to locate, how to enforce hygiene, how to allocate responsibilities, carry consequences that ripple through every corner of the business. But authority is never absolute when the team includes parents who feel experienced, invested, and culturally entitled to do things their way. Every confrontation, every correction is a negotiation of respect as much as a correction of practice. Leadership here isn't about telling people what to do. It's about convincing, mediating, and sometimes controlling expectations without breaking trust. Communication, or the lack of it, amplifies every misstep. Jenny's anxieties, the parents' assumptions, Sumit's frustration, they're all operating with partial information and high stakes. When Jenny doesn't voice concerns until she's overwhelmed, or when Sumit assumes compliance without confirming it, tension multiplies. Misunderstandings compound, and suddenly small operational issues, like where the water comes from, become flashpoints for conflict. The audience realizes that what seemed like incompetence is often just a communication breakdown intensified by stress, unfamiliar cultural norms, and the pressure of being on camera. Hygiene, while dramatic and visually shocking, is actually a symptom, not the disease. The toilet water panic and the cow urine blessing captured attention, but they are just surface-level triggers for the real story. How people manage power, expectation, and risk under pressure. Every spilled ingredient, every lost plate, every sigh from Jenny or Sumit is a reflection of a larger struggle, balancing family loyalty with personal ambition, cultural respect with practical necessity, and romantic optimism with business reality. The audience begins to understand that the real drama isn't the mess. It's the negotiation of human behavior under extreme stress. And this is where the emotional payoff lands. Jenny's frustration isn't selfish. It's a reflection of a young partner trying to find autonomy while contributing meaningfully. Sumit's sternness isn't authoritarian. It's an attempt to protect the family's investment while proving competence to everyone, including himself. The family's insistence on tradition isn't stubbornness. It's an attempt to maintain dignity and identity in the middle of chaos. What looked like comedy, shock, or incompetence is actually a layered human struggle that tests love, leadership, and resilience. So the real question nobody is asking, the one that ties every open loop together, isn't about coffee, curry, or even cow urine. It's, can this partnership survive when the stakes aren't just business, but identity, control, and emotional survival? Can love and cultural respect coexist with financial accountability and practical skill? And, importantly, how far are they willing to go to make it work before someone cracks? The cafe may reopen tomorrow, the blessing may have concluded, and the free samples may be gone. But the real story is just beginning. Jenny, Sumit, and the family are all poised at the edge of the next test: operational, financial, and emotional. Will the cracks widen, or will they find a way to hold together? And if you think this was tense, wait until we compare the couple's progress to others in the market, revealing who's thriving and who's about to implode. That next story promises more drama, more stakes, and a reminder that in reality, love alone doesn't make a business survive.